welcome to the first video of the Watercolor Supplies playlist. In this video I'm going to talk about paper. The first thing you need to know about paper is the paper type. You have two types of paper. You have a wood pulp paper and cotton paper. I'm not really going to talk about the wood pulp paper because I don't recommend it, and actually the only time I used the wood pulp paper was when I was just starting with watercolors and I didn't realize what I was buying. Let's concentrate on the cotton paper. It's the best paper for watercolors. It's made out of cotton, and cotton paper can come in 10% cotton up to 100% cotton. The more cotton you have, the more expensive it is, the more quality it is, and the better it is. My practice sheets is made out of 20% cotton, just for practice. My sheets that I do the painting on is 100% cotton. Now, every cotton paper can come in three forms. It can come as hot press paper, cold press paper, and rough. What does it mean, basically? Hot press paper means that when they make paper, they make it like a mush, and it needs to dry. So in hot press paper, what they do is they dry the paper with a hot iron. In cold press paper, they dry the paper with a cold iron. Rough paper, you have hot pressed, cold pressed, and rough. In rough paper, they don't use any method to dry the paper, they just leave it to dry by itself. Let's learn about these three types of paper and what does it mean. Hot press paper is, the texture of the paper is very smooth. It has no texture on it. It's very smooth. You can hear it. Because it's so smooth and it doesn't have texture on it, it doesn't absorb a lot of water. So the water stays, you can't use a lot of water with this paper to begin with. And the water that you do use, you will notice, even if it's a little amount of water, it will stay on the paper because the paper doesn't absorb it because it's smooth and it has no texture, because that's hot press paper. You can't really use the dry brush method on hot press paper because it's too smooth for it. Okay, some artists only use hot pressed. I personally don't really love it. I do have one book of that. Actually, that was also by mistake that I bought hot pressed paper. I usually only use cold pressed paper. Let's talk about cold pressed paper. Cold pressed paper has some texture on it. It's not smooth as the hot pressed. It has a little bit of texture on it. You can hear it. Okay, it has texture on it, so it absorbs a lot of water, much more water than the hot press paper. It absorbs a lot of water. It is very forgiving. You can if you made a mistake, you can fix it on a cold press. You can observe it. You can you have time to fix because it doesn't dry so fast because it has a lot of texture. It's the most popular paper. I only use cold press paper. Sometimes I will use rough paper. So let's go through to the rough paper. The rough paper is the most textury paper. It has a lot of texture on it. A lot of texture on it. It absorbs a lot of water. Okay, let's say, for example, if the hot press paper will absorb a tiny amount, smaller than this amount of water. The cold pressed, if it absorbs this amount of paper, so the rough paper can absorb this much water. Okay, so a lot more water than the cold press and of course the hot press. It absorbs tons of paint. Also, you can use a lot of paint and water on rough texture. It has a rough texture as it's called, it's rough. So when you do use it, it's great for the dry brush method. It's amazing for that. You can just slide your dry brush and you will immediately see the texture. Unlike the hot press paper that is very smooth, and if you take your to dry brush and go over the paper, you won't see any texture. It will just be a weird line. Here it will be like you will see the texture of the paper through the pigment. It's amazing. It is also great for washes. When you do color washes, 1 color washes, 2 color washes, whatever wash, you know, a wash is basically when you take a lot of water and a lot of paint and you just wash the entire page. The entire paper with like a certain color, maybe it's background. When you paint landscapes and sunsets and mountains, sky, it's great for that. Rough paper is great for that. It dries slow because it preserves a lot of water. It has this much water. It takes more time to dry than this amount of water. So while it's drying, you can still play with the pigment around the paper. Let's talk about the weight of the paper. Weight of the paper, in my advice, in my opinion, should be at least 300 GSM. I think it's gram, maybe? I don't know, GSM. My practice paper is 210 GSM, and it's good. It's okay. It's fine for practice. But for professional painting, if you want to make something nice and maybe hang it at your wall, I would recommend for the paper to be at least 300 GSM. All the information usually is on the paper. You have a lot of data on the cover of the book. For example, this one is 300 GSM. It has 20% cotton on it, and you will notice that it doesn't say cold press nor hot press. So I didn't really know what it was. I bought it a long time ago, and I didn't think about. I don't know what happened to me. I just bought it, and apparently it's called hot pressed. But yeah, it was fun to play with. So weight of the paper should be at least 300 GSM. The thicker, the more it is, the more I think it's gram per square meter. The more the number is, the higher the number is, the thicker the paper is. So for example, I have here 640 GSM paper. And it's almost like a cardboard, okay? So this is heavy duty paper. It absorbs a lot of water, okay? So another thing you should know about paper, it's not that important, that it comes in 2 colors. It might come in a bright white or extra white or whatever white. Every brand has their own name for it, which the paper is white, very white. And in this type of paper, your colors will really would pop out of the paper, whilst the natural paper is more yellowish. So your paint might not, your colors might not pop that much. It again depends on what you like and what you want to draw. Okay, so I have a great tip for you. I went to my local art shop and they gave me free paper samples. Try to go to your local art shop and ask them if maybe they're doing it too. They give you all types of paper. They give you for example, this one is hot pressed, 640 GSM. Hot pressed. It's very smooth and it's very thick. I should try it. This one is hot pressed, 300 GSM. I want to show you like a hot press paper painting and a rough paper painting. I want to see if you can see the difference from here. This is the hot press. You can see that it's very smooth. The flowers are very smooth. There's no texture. the color blends well on hot pressed. Let's try these two paintings that are kind of alike, and one is on hot press and one is on cold press. So again, this is the hot pressed. You see that it's smooth. The flowers are, oh sorry, it's this way. Flowers are very smooth, there's no texture on it. Found it. And this is the cold pressed. Can you tell the difference? Does it look more textury to you? I think so. Look at the, yeah, I think so. You can definitely see the difference. This is hot press and this is cold press. Let's see more examples on different papers. Cold press. Cold press. You see it's textury. You can see the texture of the paper through the flowers. You see here? You can actually see the texture through the flowers. While hot pressed, you can see nothing through the flowers because there is no texture to see. It's very smooth. So again, depends on what you love. This is also hot pressed. You see how smooth it is? It's very smooth. The painting comes out very smooth. While this one, definitely see the texture through the flower, the texture of the paper. More example. This is rough, but yes, both sides. Yes. By the way, these papers you can paint both sides. Use the max, get the max out of your paper. The thicker the paper is, the easiest it will be to paint both sides, because obviously less thick paper, under 300 grams, will probably wrinkle because it can't absorb a lot of water. It's very light. It will wrinkle. It will have waves. That's why you need at least 300 GSM. So this is rough. You see? I love it. I love rough. I love the rough paper and the cold pressed paper. Oh my god. Okay. So let's see if I didn't miss anything. I gave you the tip. Go to your local art shop and see if they're handing out any free paper. Free paper samples. Very important. We talked about everything. Okay. So thank you guys for watching. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.